Be honest, you've run the daydream. The lottery hits, the numbers line up, and just like that, every problem you have dissolves. The bills, the stress, the job you tolerate, gone. Money would fix it. It's the quiet assumption almost everyone walks around with, that the thing standing between you and a good life is a bigger number in your bank account. And up to a point, that's completely true. But past that point, the research gets strange, because more money doesn't just stop fixing your life. It can quietly start trading your old problems for new, sneakier ones you never saw coming. This isn't a feel-good, money doesn't matter speech. It absolutely does. It's about what happens after you have enough, and why the thing you're chasing so hard might not be carrying you where you think. Let's start with the most ruthless fact in all of happiness research. You adapt to everything. Psychologists call it the hedonic treadmill, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Whatever good thing happens to you, your brain celebrates for a while, then quietly resets your expectations and treats the new thing as the boring baseline. The promotion you'd kill for becomes just your job. The dream car becomes the thing you drive to work. The raise you were sure would change everything becomes the new normal you need to exceed. There's a famous 1978 study that nailed this. Researchers compared two very different groups, people who had recently won the lottery and people who had recently become paralyzed in an accident. You'd expect a massive, permanent happiness gap between them. But when they measured how happy each group was, the lottery winners were not significantly happier with their everyday lives than the control group, and in some ways took less pleasure in ordinary moments. The accident victims, meanwhile, had adapted far more than anyone predicted. Both groups had drifted back toward their own baseline. The win wore off. The treadmill kept moving. So if you adapt to everything, the obvious question is whether money buys any lasting happiness at all. And here the science is genuinely fascinating, because it's been argued about for over a decade. In 2010, two researchers, Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton, published a landmark study. They found that a person's day-to-day emotional well-being did rise with income, but only to a point, somewhere around $75,000 a year at the time. Past that, more money kept improving how people rated their life on paper, but it stopped improving how they actually felt day to day. That number became famous. Happiness maxes out at 75 grand was everywhere. But then, in 2021, a researcher named Matthew Killingsworth ran a much larger study and found no such ceiling. In his data, happiness kept climbing with income, even well beyond that magic number. Two respected studies, opposite conclusions. So, in a rare and genuinely admirable move, the two camps teamed up in 2023 to figure out who was right. And the answer they landed on is the interesting part. For most people, more money does keep nudging happiness upward, slowly, but for an unhappy minority, those already struggling with things money can't touch, happiness flattens out and more income does basically nothing. As they put it, if you're rich and miserable, more money won't fix the misery. Heartbreak, loneliness, depression, these don't have a price you can pay to make them go away. Which leads to the first real trap. Money is relative. You don't actually feel rich based on what you have. You feel rich based on what you have compared to the people around you. Give someone a huge raise, and within months they've usually upgraded their entire reference group. New neighborhood, new friends, new normal. And suddenly, they're not the richest person in the room anymore. They're the poorest person at a much more expensive table. Economists have watched entire countries get dramatically wealthier over decades without getting any happier because everyone rose together and nobody got to feel ahead. You're not chasing a number, you're chasing being ahead of the people next to you, and that finish line moves every single time you get close. But here's where it goes from money won't fix you to money might actually change you, and this is the part most people don't expect. There's a series of studies by a psychologist named Piff at Berkeley that are almost uncomfortable to hear. In one, he had pairs of strangers play Monopoly, but he rigged it. A coin flip decided who'd be the rich player. That person started with twice the money, collected double for passing go, and rolled 2 dice instead of 1. The game was nakedly, obviously unfair, and everyone knew it. And yet, within minutes, the rich players changed. They got louder. They moved their piece more aggressively, slamming it down. They took more of the shared snacks. They started talking about how well they were playing. And the most damning part, when researchers asked the winners afterward why they'd won, they talked about their smart decisions and their strategy. They had genuinely started to believe they'd earned a game that was handed to them by a coin flip. And it's not just in a lab. Piff's team also stationed observers at real intersections. They found that drivers of expensive luxury cars were several times more likely to cut off other drivers and to blow past pedestrians waiting at a crosswalk than people in cheap cars. In one version, around half of the luxury car drivers didn't stop for a pedestrian. The cheapest cars stopped almost every time. The pattern across his research is consistent. As people feel wealthier, on average, their empathy and compassion tend to tick down while their sense of entitlement ticks up. Money insulates you from needing other people, and a brain that doesn't need other people slowly gets worse at caring about them. Now stack that on top of everything else. The isolation is real. Sudden wealth famously wrecks relationships because money introduces a question you can never fully unask. Do they like me or do they like this? Lottery winners are statistically more likely to end up estranged from friends and family. You win the rat race, and the prize is discovering you're still a rat, just a lonelier one, in a nicer cage, surrounded by people you're no longer sure you can trust. So let's be fair, because this cuts both ways, and pretending otherwise would be dishonest. Poverty is worse, full stop. Being unable to pay rent, skipping meals, lying awake terrified about a medical bill, that is genuine grinding misery, and money erases it almost completely. The research is crystal clear that getting out of not enough buys an enormous amount of relief and freedom. Nobody serious is romanticizing being broke. The point is narrower and sneakier than that. Once you're past enough, the curve flattens and the problems just change shape. You stop worrying about survival and start worrying about status, meaning, and whether anyone around you is real. So the next time you catch yourself running that lottery daydream, assuming the number is the answer to everything, it's worth remembering what the research actually shows. Money is a phenomenally good tool for solving money problems. It buys safety, freedom, options, time, but it was never designed to solve life problems. And past a certain point, every extra dollar buys a little less of what you were actually after, while quietly charging you in ways that don't show up on any price tag. So, here's my question for you. Forget rich. What's your actual number, the point where you'd have enough and you'd finally stop chasing? Tell me in the comments, and be honest about whether you'd really stop there.